This is from Breitbart. The so-called second impeachment trial of the great white hope Donald Trump took place yesterday. It's so fake, but they're doing it anyway. It's not real, but they're doing it anyway because they think that they think that you're dumb enough to believe that it's real just because they're doing it. They're doing it. So this fake so-called second impeachment trial of Donald Trump took place yesterday. The day ended with a Senate vote of 56 to 44 in favor, 56 in favor of continuing the trial and affirming that it is constitutional. But we all know that it's not, with 6 Republicans voting alongside the Democrat. And watch these phony tears. What a beta male. Watch these phony tears because he's crying over nothing. It's all made up. How would you like to be married to a man like that? Watch this.
I told my daughter Tabitha, who's 24, I told her how sorry I was, and I promised her that it would not be like this again the next time she came back to the Capitol with me. And you know what she said?
I don't want to come back.
She said, Dad, I don't want to come back to the Capitol.
That's so fake.
Of all the terrible, brutal things I saw and I heard on that day, and since then, that one hit me the hardest.
It's so emotional. Why is everybody so emotional now? Everybody crying except baby Jessica's daddy. What the? And the tears are fake. They are not. And that was Jamie Raskin, a Democrat from Minnesota. I wonder when he go home at night and his wife and kids saw that. Does he say to them, how was my act? Did I really put a job? Did y'all believe me that I was crying? Men, this is not normal. This is not how men act. Really. How are you going to lead the way if you're acting like the woman? We got to bring back God's order of God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. A Trump defense attorney, David Schoen, became visibly emotional while reciting the poem, The Building of the Ship. Watch this.
Before we close, I want to leave you with 2 thoughts. One was expressed by Abraham Lincoln. He comes to mind first because of the way in which our nation is now divided. Poets who wrote in 1849 at a time fraught with division and risk for even more. Poet Longfellow wrote, Sail forth into the sea, O ship, through wind and wave, right onward steer. Fear not each sudden sound and shock. 'Tis of the wave, excuse me, 'tis of the wave and not the rock. Over our fears are all with thee, are all with thee.
What was that about? Men, stop all this crying. It's a time to shed a few tears. But why are you acting this way? Now, if you're reading the If poem, I can understand. What the? Men, stop it. You're embarrassing yourself. You're making the women hate you more. You don't need to act like them, really. You can get along better with women by not acting like them than it is to act like them. You're not supposed to be acting. Men are supposed to be strong. You're made that way by God. Breitbart is reporting that Democrats played a deceptively edited video of Donald Trump's speech on January 6, 2020. At the beginning of the trial, they played this at the beginning of the trial, leaving out his call for supporters to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. And so many Democratic voters believe that. In my own family, blood family. They believe that they don't know that Donald Trump said that. To peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Because they're watching liberal news and they're just repeating. They like firmly believe it because the liberal media said it. Just because I said it, don't mean I mean it. They are believing it as firmly as we believe what he really said. It's amazing to see it, too. I don't even try to convince them that it's not true because they're rooted in it. They are rooted and grounded in believing what the liberal media said. Even the Christian family members. Here's where lead Trump defense attorney Bruce Castro responded to the Democrats' open video, calling it well done. I would fire him so fast his head would swim. Here's that soundbite from MSNBC.
I'll be quite frank with you. We changed what we were going to do on account that we thought that the House manager's presentation was well done.
Wow. I would fire him before he leaves the floor. How are you going to praise evil, call what they did well done, in deceiving the people? Unless he ended that statement by saying, I thought it was well done in trying to deceive the people. Something like that, if he got to say that. That was the Great White Hope lead attorney, defense attorney. And my producer's coming in with this story as the fake impeachment of Donald Trump is underway and Congress mull over domestic terrorist laws. Investigators are struggling to build the murder case in the death of a Capitol officer. Remember they said there was a Capitol officer that was killed when that happened, and the death of this officer being used. Well, apparently Revolver News has investigated this somewhat, and they have more information on this. And Nick is here.
Yes,
What
and a
happened?
very I would call explosive report. I thought it was very interesting. But you know, the impeachment's going on. The Congress wants to pass like terrorist laws and take away the rights of Americans, right? They want to put federal murder charges against people that were at the Capitol on January 6th, right? All this is going on, yet CNN reported just days ago that investigators are struggling to build the murder case in the death of Capitol officer Brian Sicknick, right? And Brian Sicknick was amongst the couple of deaths that happened that day. But Brian Sicknick is the only death of that day, January 6th, which is supposedly at the hands of the mob, right?
Right.
Because there was medical complications with some officers. There was one that was like an accidental death from being trampled, and then the lady who was shot by the Capitol Hill police.
Right.
Actually bad. But this one, Brian Sicknick, he was bashed in the head with a fire extinguisher and murdered by the mob, right? And so that's
what they said, right?
That's what they're saying, right? In fact, the death of this officer is being used in the trial. They're charging Donald Trump. Part of his charge was that he incited an insurrection that led to the death of this officer, right? But CNN is asking why are investigators struggling to build a murder case in the death of U.S. Capitol Officer Sicknick, right?
Right.
And so this is where it gets interesting because Revolver put together this really cool report. You could check it out on revolver.news. But they saw CNN's headline and they put together why they're not able to put together a murder case, right? Which should be the easiest thing for the FBI and the DOJ. They should be able to just come up with the evidence and show you why. Well, it turns out Check it out. Let's just quickly give the people a recap. If we go back to the day right after Sicknick's death, you know, the New York Times released this article saying, and this is the headline article that was pushed everywhere. He dreamed of being a police officer, and then he was killed by a pro-Trump mob, right? This was the headline. It was pushed everywhere, right? You know, everybody repeated the bludgeoned by a fire extinguisher line.
I've been hearing it all over the place.
Right? And the House trial memorandum themselves, for the trial against the president, they accused Trump liable for insurrections that killed a Capitol Police officer by striking him in the head with a fire extinguisher. Their source for this? The New York Times. But the New York Times completely lied about every claim. They say in this article, bludgeoned by a fire extinguisher. But law enforcement officials in that article that I just talked about with CNN, talking about where's the murder case for Officer Sicknick, that very article talks about how law enforcement officials now tell CNN that there was no fire extinguisher blow, no bloody gash, and no blunt force trauma to Sicknick's body when he died.
Wow.
That's huge.
So how did they come up with that?
They
just made it up out of thin air?
People just lie, and they just gets repeated and thrown around. Look, according to this is from the CNN article, medical examiners did not find signs. This is all from that article. This is CNN, right? So not only that, but it was unclear because apparently Sicknick collapsed in the Capitol Hill after the fire extinguisher blow or soon after, and he was collapsed and taken to the hospital where he died, right? But even that is unclear. It turns out multiple hours after the protest had been concluded, Sicknick texted his own brother, Ken, and that very night, hours later after the protest, saying that I got pepper sprayed twice and confirming he was safe and in good shape. And it was right. He said to his brother, I'm safe, I'm in good shape.
What the?
And then turns out that it was after that night, it was Wednesday, right? Somewhere in between Wednesday and Thursday, the Sicknick family started getting calls that Brian died, that Ken's brother died, that your son died. It didn't come from the FBI, it didn't come from the DOJ, it didn't come from law enforcement, it came from media people. Media people just started calling them. This story circulated. Oh, Brian Sicknick died. Turns out he had not died yet. He was still alive. He was in the hospital, but he had not died yet. And the Capitol Hill spokesman had to confirm this. He had to fix that from the media. The media saying that he died. He's like, no, he didn't die.
Wow.
And an hour later, when the family went to the hospital to see what happened to Brian, he ended up dying afterwards. So that's weird. There's so many odd things. And, you know, they were getting calls about that when he was declared dead, but he wasn't, you know, and the story just gets so strange when, because they were saying that, the Brian Sicknick collapsed in the hospital. I mean, he collapsed in the Capitol Hill, right? There's another odd thing, but turns out he went back to like his workplace where the police go. So he didn't collapse in the Capitol Hill. He ended up showing up to where he ended up going back to the law enforcement division office, right? He went back to his office.
Amazing.
So he didn't collapse anywhere
So will the people who put the other story out go back and say we were just playing and it happened that way?
You know they won't. And so we're left to today with the article from CNN wondering where's the murder case for Brian Sicknick, and we're here today still waiting for, after the DOJ Attorney General was like, we're going to spare no resources in this investigation. We're still waiting on an autopsy report. Still waiting for a full autopsy report to be released. According to Revolver, these things take 2 to 4 hours to perform, and results are typically available in 24 hours.
Wow. Amazing.
Investigators are vexed by a lack of evidence that could prove someone caused his death. This is talking about Brian Sicknick, right? Investigators, this is from the CNN article. Investigators are vexed by a lack of evidence that could prove someone caused his death. Authorities have reviewed video and photographs that show Sicknick engaging with rioters amid the siege, but have yet to identify a moment in which he suffered his fatal injuries. The Capitol has cameras everywhere. Where's the footage?
So this is all on Revolver News.
It's all on Revolver. You guys got to check it out. It's
RevolverNews.com, you say?
Yeah, Revolver.news.
Revolver.news.
It's so good.
This is an amazing story, man, but not surprising because I don't trust anything the media has to say now.
You can't.
Nothing.
Information is going to get crazy.
They hate the president so bad, President Trump so bad, that they'll put anything out there they're really trying to turn his supporters away from him.
Honestly.
Because he still have major support from his supporters as well, the voters.
That's a good point.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
No problem.
Amazing. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.